Hi, Dr. Dave Webster. This particular section of the video is specifically about the Northern Life, and I particularly have trouble with the Northern Life, as you will see. They've really gone out of the way, I would say, to actually, I don't know what they were trying to do, maybe amuse themselves by trying to put me off or whatever. But over the years, the Northern Life has supposedly supported Pat, and I think support the idea that Sam was, the man of the year. But what I really resent about the Northern Life and the other media in this town is that they really defile his memory, because what they did do at the board level, I assure you, was deliberately behind the scenes make decisions to block the information on the story that would have brought Sam's story forward. I've said to the media clearly it's not their job to get to get a PET scanner for Sudbury, but they would like us to believe that they're supposedly professional, objective, unbiased journalists. It's utter nonsense, as I think everybody knows, as I've said before. Anyway, specifically about the Northern Life, more recent history is that Heidi Erlichson was a reporter when I was at the San Bruno benefit dinner. She recorded with her recorder exactly what I was saying, and I gave her a lot of information. The article that came out in the Northern Life was nonsense. It was almost useless. It was very upsetting for Sam. His wife Cheryl and Frank, the Northern Life was more interested in what really they were having for dinner rather than the real issues. But more importantly, what Heidi did was she deliberately reversed a statement I made about the Ombudsman, and really was one of the major points of my talk, was because it's very upsetting that the Ombudsman has buried this information on Pat and is acting as a cheerleader for the government, but they reversed that. So I phoned Wendy Bird, the editor of the Northern Life, and I said, Wendy, this is what's happened, and didn't say much. Whatever, the bottom line is you'll note that the Northern Life did not they did not retract that statement. So then I thought, well, look, maybe I'll approach Brian Aikens, the owner, and so I wrote a number of emails to him. He never really wrote back to me, but my thought was this, that, nationally controlled or largely media controlled by larger structures we know are going to try and control our thoughts and so on, and decide what we need to hear. But I thought, this is a locally, privately owned newspaper, and maybe Brian will have the courage and professionalism to actually get the story out, and not have the same pressures to try and simply support the government on this particular issue as they've clearly done the other media and so on. The bottom line was I got a letter or an email from Heidi saying would I consider, or Wendy, somebody sent me an email, said would I reconsider another interview. So I said, okay, fine, and I went back, and this was, I think, February the 2nd or something like that. And when I got into the room, I was a little more aggressive this time with Heidi. I demanded to know why Heidi was doing this. And this was her response. She said, you're harassing the owner of this paper and my editor. Interesting response from a journalist thing. Not because this was an interesting story, but because I was hassling her editor and the owner of the paper. So I said, well, look, this is an extraordinary story. There's a lot of information. I would have thought, as a journalist, you might have thought this was interesting. Why won't this paper touch that? She said, well, we can't print everything we have information on. I mean, come on, there's just too much out there. That's exactly what she said. So, this is coming from a professional, objective, unbiased journalist. Somehow, this story she doesn't think is particularly interesting, and so on. I mean, the details behind the scenes, so the absurdity of that statement. So the bottom line is I went through and I gave her a long, rambling interview. But more importantly, at the end, what I said before I left, I said, look, Heidi, I understand I'm biased on this, and the paper, if it wants to be unbiased, is going to have to, get other corroborating information. I said I would be happy to put you in contact with, whatever world experts and people, Sandy McEwen, for example, who made that statement in an international journal, condemning Ontario's capricious use of scientifically baseless tools to block access of patients to PET and so on. I said, I'll put you in contact, I'll have the questions reviewed, I can give you information, whatever you need I will give you access to. I reinforced that with an email. I believe that email I last sent to her was in February 8th or something like that, and as you can see, there's nothing in the paper, and I certainly have had no further contact from the Northern Life. So, Mr. Aikens, Wendy Bird, and Heidi, I really do resent what you were doing. I mean, what were you really thinking? Were you thinking that, pat Dave in the head, maybe getting a little more, time on a dictaphone, that somehow I'm going to go away? I mean, that is so in your face and wrong. And so what I'm asking the people of Sudbury, now that you are aware of this information, I want you to challenge the Northern Life, Mr. Aikens and Wendy Bird and Heidi, and demand to know why they are deliberately blocking this information and why they've handled it the way they have, why they deliberately reversed a statement I made about the Ombudsman. of Ontario and his blocking of this report and so on. You have the power to do that, and I think we need to have them use how they've handled the PET information to demonstrate to us just why we should consider them a trusted news source or not. So again, I'm making a plea to you people in Sudbury here. I hope you'll back me on this one. I'm going to be canceling my subscription to the Northern Life. I'm going to be making it clear to them why I'm canceling my subscription, and until they are prepared to either stand up and defend their decisions and explain to us why they consider themselves a worthy source of news for us, or just finally admit that what Mr. Aikens and the team are there to do is just control what they want you to hear and how they want you to hear it. I find that particularly obviously very upsetting, and it angers me, and I'm sick and tired of dealing with crap from the media, but all the while wanting us to believe they're sources of reliable news. So please follow me on this one if you will, or maybe just get the Northern Life and the various media to admit that they really are just sources of propaganda and a place to get your flyers delivered. So let's see what happens. Let's give it a go. Let's start this little, ripple in Sudbury here, and let's make a tidal wave across the province and get the media in Sudbury first and foremost to stand up and admit what they're doing or do something differently. Thanks.